Greetings, and welcome to another segmentation tutorial for the Vesuvius Challenge. It's been a fascinating year this past year. We've accomplished a whole lot, in no small part due to advancements in our software. So we're going to go through the software again and talk about segmentation and get everybody up to speed on all the new features. This time we're going to start from the very beginning and walk through the process of getting set up. So feel free to fast forward to the part where we start segmenting if you're already set up. I'm on Ubuntu here, a Linux distribution, but we've Dockerized Volume Cartographer, our segmentation software, so you should be able to run it on anything. All right. If you have any questions, if you're stuck on anything, please jump on the Discord server. We have an entire section for newbie questions, and we'll be sure to get to you. All right, so here we are on the home page, scrollprize.org. We're going to need to access the data. So we go to data here and right away to download, fill out the registration form. All right, so this is our data agreement. You sign the data agreement and you gain access to the data. Very good. Okay, now we're going to go down to our scrolls and see we have some information here about the scrolls and some amazing photographs. And we come down, we find our data server. And you can find the full scrolls data on the data server. So we click through, and the first time that you come here, you'll have to put in a username and a password, which you will have obtained when you signed the data agreement. Okay, so now how do we download the data? Let's say we're interested in scroll 1 here. Okay, now we need to build the correct folder structure on our computer. So that our software, Volume Cartographer, will behave properly. It's looking for a correct folder structure. So we can make a folder called Full Scrolls, and on the disk on which we want to download the data, and then we want to make, see here, a volume package directory. So for scroll 1, it's scroll1.volumepackage. Okay, so here we are. Now, in the volume package, this is where it's strict. You need 4 folders: paths, renders, volumes, and working. And transforms is extra, but it's the 4 that's absolutely required: paths, renders, volumes, and working. And you also need, at this level, the config.json, right? It's our configuration file. And so we see it here on the left. We see at the very bottom, here's our config.json, and you can save it. Okay. Okay, so now that we're set up here, we want to figure out how to download our data. So we have our volumes directory, and in our volumes directory, we have this directory full of files. Now these are the original TIFF files of the data that we will be working with in Volume Cartographer. You'll notice back here there's other types of data that you can be used for different purposes. Feel free to explore that. But for now, we'll just be using what is in the volumes folder. Okay, rclone is a good way to download the data. And so here's a basic rclone command. And this will be on the website in the written tutorial as well. And I'm actually going to go into my directory first before I run the command. Okay. And so now this is going to start downloading the files. And one thing, there's about 2 terabytes of data here. And if you don't have enough space, you can download just a range of files. It's totally fine. But no matter what, at the bottom here, you see this meta.json. That has to be in with the rest of your files, no matter what, inside this volume folder, beside the TIFFs. All right, so what happens next? Okay, we need to figure out how to launch Volume Cartographer. Luckily, we have it in a Docker container. So first we want to install Docker, right? So how do we install Docker? You can install Docker Desktop or Docker Engine. I'd recommend Docker Engine. It's very simple and minimal. I'm on Ubuntu here, click through to Ubuntu, and we look at our installation methods, and we have install using the apt repository. That's a good one. Okay, so we have these commands here. We can simply copy and paste, no problem. All right, and we copy and paste again. No problem. Now we will copy and paste this one to test and make sure our Docker works. And hello from Docker, okay? That's it. Now Docker's installed, everything's happy. All right, this is just indexing. It'll start actually downloading files quite soon. Now I've already downloaded some files. And so now, okay, so now from full scrolls, we can run our Docker command, and from which we can launch VC. First, we want to make everything happy. So we have to, add our local connections, and then we can simply run Docker. Here we are. To launch Volume Cartographer, hit VC, and we're in. All right, so now I'm going to switch over to my installation of Volume Cartographer because I have all my data set up properly. Okay, so here we are, we're in. I'm going to go over all these windows and all these options as we go. And I think it's best to do it as they come up as opposed to try and hit you with everything right away. So first we want to open our volume package in the top left. And I have one that I've already recently opened. Let's open scroll 3. All right, now basic commands, we can move up and down with the scroll wheel. I can hold the Alt key, move left and right. I can hold down the right mouse button to pan around as well. Control and mouse wheel is zoom in, zoom out. And then shift and mouse wheel scans up and down through the tips, or we call them slices. Now, there are a bunch of keybinds with which to navigate. So if you go up to the help menu and click keybinds, we can look at these and see the different things we can do. And often there's 2 or 3 different ways to do a certain thing depending on how you like to navigate. Okay, so in the bottom right here, we have our segment ID. This is a segmentation that I was already working on, and I can click in the display box to bring the segmentation into view. Now, nothing's happened. It has loaded, but if I hold the Shift key and click on the number, we're taken immediately to our segment. All right, so let's start a new segment. Often we'll base a new segment on an old segment, and so I'm going to continue this spiral segment. I'm just going to continue where I've left off with the new segment. So to start a new segment, we will click new down here on the bottom right. Okay, and then we have the pen tool up here. Okay, now we can draw a new segment. So we like to overlap a little bit just so we know we can stay consistent. So I'm going to overlap this segment a little bit. Now I'm not going to be too accurate at this point because I'm going to come back and I'm going to adjust this right after I'm done drawing it. So I'm going to get this just as close as I can where I think this segment is. Now I'm trying to follow individual sheets of papyrus on the side of the papyrus that is facing the center of the scroll. Pardon me while I think and talk and draw dots at the same time. Scroll 3 is it's quite difficult. It's a very interesting data set, as you will soon find out if you start playing around with it to any extent. All right, so let's do 2 wraps around with just a little bit of overlap. All right, so that's good enough. We'll turn off the pen tool, and now let's get in there and make this more accurate. So we're moving dots now, and the impact range. Well, first click the segmentation tool. Now we can move dots. All right, button up there at the top. All right, so we can move a different number of dots every time we move the mouse when we grab them. And so this is called the impact range. We can see here a slider on the right, but it's also mapped to hotkeys on the keybinds on the keyboard. I've got they're here on A and D, for example. And so you can see the little number appearing by my pointer. So I can move 11 dots at a time like that. And I can change it to 7. And so we can just keep on changing the number of dots depending on how many we think we need to move to fit into contours. And okay, and here we go. So here I'm overlapping this segment, the blue one, the old one, just to use sort of as a guideline. And this double dots in here. Yeah, it's just a little glitch. Okay, so it's going to take me a little while to work through this, but this is the obvious general idea. And you know, if we get right in there, we can see the actual pixels and we can count them. And we know that when we calculate a surface volume for ink detection, the surface volume is 65 pixels thick. So that's a really thick volume around the segmentation line. So this line of red dots would be 32.tiff, and then there would be 32 on either side, 32 pixels on either side to create a volume. However, I mean, you do want to be as accurate as possible. It's nice to be within, you know, 2 or 3 pixels. But if you're creating data for automatic segmentation, you might need to be more accurate than that, like 1, maybe 2 pixels. And ink detection, you know, in scroll 1 at least, we just had to be within 5 or 6 pixels. So it's really, it's an open question, the accuracy. You want to be as accurate as possible. And like we see lots of little wispy things, you know, like what's even, you know, these look like lightning strikes in here. But anyway, so I'm going to have to go through and manipulate this whole line. Okay. Now it's not always clear what's happening, you know, where the line is. Like, look, what's this thing in between? What's the one I followed down here? Like, have I done something wrong here, right? And so this is where scanning comes into play. You want to create a 3D model in your head of what's going on. So you want to scan up and down the data set. And to do that, you hold down Shift and spin the mouse wheel. Okay? And so we're trying to figure out what's going on. And then we press F to get back to where we were. So, and then you can change how many slices you scan with each click of the mouse wheel. So we can go to 100 at a time and go through the whole data set really fast, right? Or we can go 1 at a time. I'm going to use 5 to try and see what's going on here. So it looks like, you know, that's quite separate, but maybe all this mess down here is just part of the same papyrus. Right. So, right. So here we see this quite, it looks very consistent, breaks apart. But so I'm on the same sheet where the blue and the red are. This is the same piece of papyrus because that looks very coherent here. Very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. So we're going to go back. So I've made a mistake. Well, right? So this is where I should be. Okay, so this is a basic technique of how to navigate, is scanning up and down to figure out, I mean, just what's going on. There's all sorts of different little types of pathologies and stuff, and you can see a lot of them in front of you right now. But you can figure it out if you just, work through it. Now, I'm not going to be insanely accurate for this tutorial. I'm going to, just do a decently good job. See that little nugget? It's bouncing back and forth, right? Look at that. What's it doing? That looks, is that, maybe that's a piece of vertical papyrus fiber, like right where my pointer is. Maybe that's a vertical papyrus fiber that's come loose, delaminated, and waving back and forth. It's very interesting. There it is again. It keeps going. Okay, anyway. Yeah, this is a fascinating data set. So I think I like where this is now. I'm totally fine with this. Okay. It's very interesting. When it comes to automatic segmentation, we're approaching this stuff, not always, but most people are approaching this stuff in full 3 dimensions. So the data, like to the algorithms, doesn't look like this. It's fully 3D with all these contours present. So it's it's quite interesting. It'll be real nice when we can get some things set up so that we can segment manually like this in a full 3 dimensions and be rotating this view, this like freeform off axis, so we can look down different angles. Okay, right. So I'm happy with that. It's fine. All right, so things are looking pretty good. Again, I'm going pretty fast here, or maybe I'm going slow, depending on how you're working. Okay, so those look clear and distinct there. And what's happening? Oh yeah, it's really, I think we're like really tucked in. I think we're coming out there. Whoa, yeah. All right, I'm happy with this. Okay, so, all right. So I think that's close enough for jazz for our purposes here. Okay, now we've annotated. We've got things how we want them. And now we're going to come over here to the right pane. And we have our parameters for segmentation. And I'm going to set these. I'd like to see the default these, just 60, 70, then 80. That's a good amount. The only thing to really think about is the smooth and curve at dark points and smooth and curve at bright points. If those are the same number, the line doesn't follow smaller contours. And if those two are very different than each other, then the line tries to follow lots of contours. It overfits. So one of the only things to think about here with these parameters is the difference between those, the delta between those two numbers. And I find a delta of 10, 70, 80 is just fine. Doesn't overfit too much, doesn't fall off too much, Okay, and so now down here are targets. This is our very first slice that we've annotated. So we see on the top left here, we have one anchor, and it's on slice 5749. Okay, and so an anchor is a name for a slice that we've annotated. And so when we run our algorithm to extend this line up through the data set or down through the data set, the algorithm won't touch these anchors because we've decided that they are accurate. Okay, so we're going backwards. We're not going backwards. Let's go up through the data set for now. So we're not going backwards, so there's none right now. And then we're going to go to forward slice 5800. Okay, so we're going to go, I guess, 51 slices. 50 slices is a good number to go. And we hit start. Okay, so here we are. Now, we want to annotate again. So we hit the segmentation tool, right? Zoom in and have a look. So now, what's going on here? You know, obviously the line has fallen off. So if we go back, we can double click on the anchor, go back to that line. And now if we want to scroll up one at a time, what's happening here? Okay, let's get right in here. So that was my annotation here oh wait. Yeah, here we are. Okay, so I'm following this nicely. So what happens? Okay, so this sheet compresses, right? If you want to look past the dots, you can press spacebar or C and make everything disappear, just so you have a better view of the papyrus underneath. Normally, all my dots would be black, so I can see the papyrus anyways. But it's easier for this purpose for that to be red and blue. Okay, so right here we can see the papyrus has smushed together, and if we keep going, when it pulls apart, the dots are they're a little bit closer to this bottom one. And so the bottom one grabs the dots and pulls it off where we want them to be. Okay, so this is very common. You have two pieces that compress, and the one you don't want takes over. Okay, and so we need to pull everything back. Onto the line where we want it. And yes, this is tedious, but this is this is a very challenging data set. Scroll one looked very different than this. And when you get to things like segmenting the fragments, the little pieces that fell off the scrolls, you know, sometimes you can run the segmentation algorithm for 500 slices at a time, and it stays on. And it's like, whoa, it's amazing. But okay, so here now we see this, the dots are starting to spread out, and like sometimes when you're segmenting, things get, you know, they get really smushed for some reason in a corner, really spread out or whatever. You can press Z, and it evenly spaces out the dots again. So that's super helpful. And just while I'm saying all this, a big shout out to Space Guyer and Richie, and of course the OG Seth for all the work they all did on this software. Made everything possible. Like usual, whenever you want to get something sort of exotic done in a new context, you have to build all your software from scratch. You can't just repurpose all the old stuff. Okay, so now we can see this is getting a little bit messy in here, right? Okay, so, you know, let's do a best guess. Oof. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Okay, so down here, that's quite distinct, right? You can see right here, it's quite distinct. Okay, so that's distinct. It's coming along. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. All right, so let's get in there. You know, it helps to go to a little bit of an easier area and then work your way back into a more difficult area. So I'm pretty confident up here. This looks good, right? And then this looks pretty good down here, right? All this stuff looks not bad. But it's just meandering our way through here. It's looking complicated. Okay, so okay, yeah. You can see now. That's quite clear what's going on. So let's just back that up and I almost want to put it right here, to be totally honest. I want to put it there. Yeah, and maybe some people watching this, they saw that immediately. Like I'm going to hit Z again to evenly space those, you know? Okay, now we look at it and it's like, oh, wait a second, you know? That looks like a nice path I've carved. Yeah. So it's back there. Kind of merges, that pulls away. Oh, it's a real tough one. It's really hard to say. Could go either way. Yeah, I'm happy with it. All right, keep on going. And again, I mean, my purpose here is to is for ink detection. So it's not 1 pixel accuracy for auto segmentation or anything. I mean, if that's even what we need for auto segmentation. If we're using machine learning, yes, that's pretty much guaranteed, but who knows? Hopefully one of you will figure that out. Okay. So hopefully my decisions here are making sense to everyone. And the reality is at the end, once you have ink detection up and running on a scroll, your truth testing is running ink detection. And if you've gone off the papyrus surface too much, letters are just cut in half and they disappear. And then you're like, oh, okay, I made a wrong decision. And then you find the coordinates and you go back and you fix it. But until you have ink detection, it's there's a lot of questions that go unanswered about the scrolls. Okay, so we're almost done this. Once again, we've got a thing. Okay, yeah. I mean, that looks good. Totally separated. You can totally tell those are separate sheets. And then yeah, we're good. All right, these are wispies from something else. Are they? Oh, this data set is a mess. Wow. All right. Well, yeah, we're gonna have to see about stuff like that. All right. So, I mean, are there any functions I haven't talked about here? I've got scroll panning and disappearing and aligning dots and scanning and yeah. going on here? I mean, I'm tempted to take it there. I don't actually know. Yeah, okay. I mean, if you scroll far enough, you eventually see things, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things evaporating, but I think it reappears there. So I'm actually gonna, this might not make sense quite as is, but my intuition says that that's quite possibly the line. It just disappears. It's just right, it looks like, yeah, I mean, it could be. Eesh. Okay, all right. Anyway, quite possibly I'm wrong there. No, but it, yeah, that little nugget comes off and then it pushes against and then looks like it comes back off again. Maybe not. I feel like people are gonna be happier if I do that. Right? I feel like really hard to say. Well, it's gonna be very interesting to see how this data set turns out and what happens. Anyways, I mean, I'm spending a lot of time with little niggly stuff there, but it's just trying to illustrate the kind of decisions we're trying to make. All right, so, you know, I'm happy enough with that. Okay, now here we are. Now we need to run the segmentation algorithm again. So we're going to go up to 5850 to start going on even numbers here. And we already have one anchor back at 5749. I actually meant that to be 5750, but whatever. So we're going to go back to the backward anchor. Okay, click that here. So segmentation algorithm will run both ways, forwards and backwards, for increased accuracy. So we're going to go back towards the backwards anchor that we've already made, and then forward into the void, another 50 slices. And that's it. Okay. So here we are again. And then we start this process all over again. Right? And you really want to save. So that's, you know, Control S or File Save. You don't want to lose your work. There's one thing that sometimes happens if you're mashing buttons too fast. You know, you really stack a bunch of commands. You're just going crazy, losing your patience or something. It can crash the program. I don't know if it's deterministic. You can't always replicate it, but always save. You don't want to have to do everything I just did all over again. Okay, and I mean, here we are again. This is a very challenging scroll. Scroll 1, you wouldn't fall off the line like this in only 50 slices. I mean, this is what it is. It's going to be a real challenge to explore this scroll for a segmentation team. So all you people working on automatic segmentation, I wish you all the luck. Actually, one more thing I would like to talk about is just a little bit more about these anchors. Once you have a segment fully made, you're going to have a lot of anchors. So I'm actually going to load up my other segment here. I'm going to turn this one off. Okay, so you see all these different anchors on the left. And so I can go to them, and then let's say, you know, something was amiss. I could add an anchor in between two anchors and then run the segmentation from backward anchor to forward anchor, right? So let's say, here, let me turn the segmentation tool off. We're on 6050 right now. Let's say that between 6050 and 6000, Like there's just something really, really wrong. So we go to 625 and we're like, oh, if it's fallen off too much, there's been a mistake, whatever. So we can start an anchor here, right? At 6025. And we can go through and we can, I'm gonna make sure I can compute it. Okay. Let's say, I want to fix this, make it more accurate, I do all this and I fix the whole segment. Okay. Now, when I go to run the segmentation, this is when I have backward anchor and forward anchor, because this is now in between two anchors I've already made. I've already annotated slices of both above and below this slice. As you can see over here, 6,000 and 6,100, or 6,000 and 6050, right? And so once I run this, I'll start it. And now I have an anchor at 6025. And now it's essentially, I've gone to the midpoint between two anchors where the segmentation has fallen off the line to the maximum amount. I fixed it and then run the segmentation algorithm in both directions. And then this will really clean up and make more accurate your segmentations. The only thing to be careful about is doing an anchor every 25 slices is getting real close together. You don't want anchors too close together. We usually never go closer than 30. Certainly wouldn't want to go below 20. Usually we go 50 slices minimum. But yeah, okay. So just wanted to illuminate more about what it meant here, that there's these backwards anchors, forward slice, backward slice. And yeah, let's say we're down at the bottom at 5750 and there's no more segment below this, right? Okay, so if we segment and we can go down to, we're gonna go backwards this time, backwards being down, well, down, backwards in numbers, obviously. And so we would run forward anchor and then backward slice, and then run segmentation. And now the algorithm is traveling, into the unknown, down to the other end. Okay. So that's it. It's very simple once you understand it. There's not a ton going on there, just up and down, right? Yeah, I think that's all. Okay, great. Take care.